we're going to get ready to move into the next part of our amazing conference, and I'm so grateful to welcome Dr. Kimberly Battle. She tells me to call her Kim, so I'm going to say Kim, who is going to be our next moderator for our Fire Chat discussion today. I know a lot of things about Kim because I work very closely with her, but I will tell you all she's an amazing asset to the VCU community. She represents the School of Nursing as our clinical associate professor with family and community health nursing as her kind of foundation of her work. She teaches in the School of Nursing, and she also leads one of the amazing programs that is in our Easton Health Hub. Has anyone not heard of the Easton Health Hub? Raise your hand if you have not heard of the VCU Health Hub at 25th. Have you heard of it? Okay, if you have not, Rich Killingsworth is in the back. Can you wave, Rich? Rich is the executive director, as well as some of the team. Our community health workers and partners are here. We want you to learn about what they do. But Kim is going to kind of help us in the next part of our discussion. I'm going to ask for the panelists to come up and make their way. As they're coming, can you all welcome them to our platform?
Well, good morning again. So this morning I'd like to introduce to you our panelists who are here at our fireside chat. I have Daryl Anderson, who's our peer support specialist. You ready to raise your hand? Thank you. Sarah Bradley, who's Carol Olson, who's the associate director. Carol, introduce yourself. Why don't we have our panelists introduce themselves?
Hi, there was a last-minute switch. So I'm the strategy and development administrator in the Injury Violence Prevention Program. So I'm here in place of Sarah Bradley, who's our associate director. But I've been with IVP for 3 years and have supervised across all of our programs.
And let's go back to Daryl. Can you introduce yourself, Daryl?
Well, my name is Darrell Anderson. I'm a peer support at Bridging the Gap IVPP. I've been there for 3 years. I started out through community violence, so I was a part of it.
Thank you. You want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ralph Stecky with Richmond Redeveloped Housing Authority. I'm the Vice President of Resident Services for the Housing Authority. We are the Human Services Department that provides support and services to our families at Richmond Redeveloped Housing Authority.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to move into ask you just a couple of questions, and we want to leave some time for you all to ask questions and interact with our panel as well. So the first question I want to ask you is, what values and principles guided your partnership in the design and structure, and how do you design your work around this partnership and the values and principles? Right, your partnership amongst yourselves in your organization, like your partnership with your organization and Richmond Housing, and as well as with your interaction with the community as well. Is it on?
Can you hear me now? Okay. So for us in the Injury Violence Prevention Program, as an extension, we are really a collaboration between the university and the hospital in itself, and then also with the community. And we value our partnerships with the community and really work toward that, to be very intersectional in our approach, to be very patient and client-focused in our work. We have various injury violence prevention programs, but one of our ones is Bridging the Gap and dealing with youth violence, as well as Empower, which is dealing with sexual and domestic violence. And so our partnerships in housing is recognizing that violence displaces people. It is much more than a gunshot wound in the street. It is the aftermath of that comes down to, how do we help the person and their family and loved ones survive, and how do we intersect with people dealing with housing, because violence displaces people from their homes frequently. Domestic violence women have higher rates of eviction notices than anyone else. People who are victims of community violence or witnesses of violence often struggle with returning to their homes in the aftermath of violence, or it becomes a crime scene. So we really value our partnership because we work closely to figure out how to relocate people either temporarily or permanently throughout this process. And it can take so many different avenues because it's a very individualized approach that we don't just do this catch-all thing. We really have to work individually with each family or each survivor.
Thank you, Carol. Ralph, would you like to address that?
Yes, so we've started working with VCU some time ago. Actually, and VCU received a grant from the Center for Disease Control that violence, and CDC has declared violence as a national epidemic. And so I started working with VCU probably 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago in our communities, focusing in Hillside, focusing in Gilpin, as well as the East End. And so one of the things that I shared when I was first approached by one of the staff members, I said, first of all, you need to know our residents don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So that was very important, and that's kind of how we approach our work in our Human Services Department, because people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then I just want to read a quote from you, and this is an old quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. Let me say, as I've always said, and I will continue to say, violence is socially destructive and self-defeating. But in the final analysis, it is the language of the unheard. Now, that quote goes all the way back to, it's over 50 years ago, Martin Luther King said that. And so that's what I think oftentimes that we forget, that people who oftentimes are involved in violence, they want to be heard. And so we try to have a platform in our communities, in our Human Services Department, so we can actually hear people and serve people. And provide a opportunity and options for especially our young people in our communities.
Darrell, do you want to talk about your values and principles that you're bringing to the partnership?
Well, that's a tough one. That's true. Basically, my values, I want to say it aligns like with my core values that I learned from the military. So it's like integrity, all that type of stuff, respect, all that. I just like to be a voice that they can't, I don't know if I won't say they can't or they won't, but they're just not ready at the time to speak. So I could be that voice that I don't know how to say it, I'm sorry, but.
Is it more advocacy?
Yeah.
More as an advocate?
Right, just be an advocate for them. Make sure they're heard.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. How do you all define and measure the impact of your work? Is it different for each partner?
I guess all eyes on me, huh?
No.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, it really is. One of the things that we do is that we have a number of programs and opportunities that we provide for our young people as well as our families. And so metrically, we look at the people who participate and graduate from those programs. Some areas we focus on is employment, education, also quality of life, and we look at those things that you talked about earlier about domestic violence and those kind of things, because those things do happen. And so what we try to do is encourage and support and identify young people who's going off to college. Also, programs and opportunities for young people during the summer. And so I think this summer we probably had about 400 young people.
That's
And then,
awesome.
Then for our adults, we also try to look at the number of people who've received employment. We have a couple of programs that help people move to a level of self-sufficiency. And so we encourage that. And we also look at people who've actually moved out of our communities.
I just want to have a follow-up question specifically for Ralph, based upon what you just said. When you said you look at these metrics as let's back up to the summer employment for the 400 youth. Were they partnerships, further additional partnerships in the community to support those employment opportunities?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think one of the things that we recognize is the need is so great, we can't do it alone. And then we have a dynamic staff who, if I don't mind, let me take the liberty, ask them to stand. They're here today
Absolutely.
from our community services. And so our staff and managers oversee our daily operations, and it's a lot of work. And so one of the things that we do partner. We have a lot of partners. VCU has been one of our long-term partners for years, and have employed a lot of our families, giving them opportunities and those types of things. And so we continue to try to develop those partnerships because you can't do it alone.
Exactly.
It's just the work is too great to do it alone.
So you started out with saying the partnership has existed for about 10 years. And can you,
Say for this program, but I meant VCU has been partners for much longer than that, but.
yes, unofficially. So you transitioned from this informal partnership to the formal partnership of applying and securing the grant funding. Carol, can you speak a little bit, because in order to secure the funding, you had to have metrics and make an evaluation measures and points along the way. Can you share maybe some of that information, because that would lead to discuss what the impact
Yeah.
in the community.
So you can look at impact in various ways. Obviously, we have a research division as part of that, and one of the grants is with our research team, who really conducts research on programs like Bridging the Gap that Darrell is a part of, and our Emerging Leaders program that you're talking about, some of these kids who have graduated that are part of. And we look at graduation, we look at surveying how well they're doing, are they making change? We also, our surveys are looking at is re-injury dropping, instead of somebody getting hurt or shot or engaged in violence or witnessing violence once, are we intersecting at the point where we can drop that? So in a research base and doing surveys, we would look at those metrics of, are we reducing re-injury rates? Are we having an effect in the community? Emerging Leaders looks at graduation from leadership programs, and are people who going through the programs then getting hired into our system? And are we creating change in people's lives? And so another metric is how many people are we bringing back in our program as employees who are part of our voice, like Darrell and other people from that program. Most of us have lived experience of some type in the injury and violence prevention program. And we then group as a voice to move that work forward in a more organized way. So I think metrics, and also just the impact of us and our relationship with the community. Can we grow partnership to the extent that we can then be a bigger force to bring larger amounts of funding to our communities that we can share and benefit in various ways, from educational programs, hospital-based violence intervention programs, and housing issues, and the intersection between community violence and domestic violence, and suicide and drug abuse or use, and things like that. So I think really there's various ways we look at metrics. We've served all 2,000 youth in community violence in this program so far.
Thank you. Darrell, I have a question for you, and I can pass you my microphone if that's okay. If you're still having problems, that's fine. As a peer support specialist, can you share with us like some of the opportunities you've had to engage with others in the program, and like kind of what your duties are and what your role involves as a peer support specialist in the community?
Yes. My role is to basically come in. I come in when they're in the hospital, and I also work with them outside of the hospital. My role, and this is what I tell them when I come in, I basically come in to see if you're mentally okay, and I also check on them, see if they're physically okay. So if they're in pain, like certain stuff that I know I could maybe understand, and they can't say to the nurse, or they just scared, or they might get mad at them, or just a bunch of advocating for them. Mentally I come in and talk to them, see how their day's going. Most of the time I get them out of the hospital room, just to give them a better feel of everything, because I know it can be draining. And I tell them that it's a lot, and I always get jammed up with this question. It's a lot. Yeah.
He does not sing his own praises. The peer support program is so valuable because it's more than just being a voice for those who are unheard, as your quote said, but it's also community. Hospitals are horrific places to be, and I work in one. I love my hospital, but you know, they're hard places to be. They're hard places to heal. People are in and out of your room. People are asking you questions. Darrell can come in and be that calm presence with that person surviving. People are trached. People have difficulty communicating. People have to learn to walk again. People have to learn to talk again. People have to learn how to eat. Their whole life can change in so many ways. And the presence of Darrell and the peer support team is providing another youth in their age range who will just sometimes sit with them to show that you can play video games again, you can have friends again, you can have a life again. And it might not be, we were talking about this on the way over, as we have survived violence in different ways, that you're not who you thought you were when you come to the other end, and how do you build a new you? And Darrell and his team are such a big part of helping youth realize that they can reinvent themselves, and they can have an imagination of who they are, and then build on that. He does not sing his praises.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about, and this will be like our last question, and I want to open it up to our audience here, to our attendees here at the conference for questions. When we speak of your program deals a lot with life before and then life after, and returning to the community. What partnerships can you elaborate on that help to promote those positive outcomes or help to address, or the partnerships that you all have developed to support that returning to the community?
Sure. So I've worked in the enterprise for a long time, and I've worked primarily in the DV and SV world before I came here. And I think the major difference is that the DV world has a huge network of providers already built. The YWCA, Hanover Safe Place. And the community violence world does not have that. We're building it now. You guys are building it now. And so we really rely on the partnerships to help build what is needed for this community. So Bridging the Gap actually follows people to the community, provides one-on-one support. So we're not just hospital-based, we're community-linked. We rely on partnerships, the housing and services, Richmond Behavioral Health Authority, and other programs, because we follow them. Kids are still engaged in the Emerging Leaders Program, which is our youth development and leadership program. And so, I mean, it's a very hard time for this cause area, but an exciting one, because we're building something new, and we really need you. Survivors really need you to develop these community-centered programs that can link to hospitals so that you have a secure handoff. And in the meantime, we're here. We have Darrell to follow them. We have the whole Bridging the Gap team. We have our partnerships with Ralph and other centers. So there's no one community center. We have to build it as we go. We have to be very unique in how we do it, and just look at, we reach out to whatever community programs are out there to see what they offer, and to help people both speak individually, but also as a group to help this. And I think our partnership with you, it was really so important in that.
I think it's, you were saying something about the hospital and how challenging it is because there's so many things happening when that happens. But I think also in terms of systems, right? When you start talking about systems, you talk about universities, they have rules and regulations
Yes, we do.
that are not friendly, that are not friendly to the individual, right? Because it's a system.
Exactly.
And then the system has to continue to move,
exist
to
and
exist
move,
and
yes,
move. Right?
yes.
So
And how do we
oftentimes
make
what
it more
happens is,
patient-centered, yeah.
and I can say, when you look at it from a human service perspective, we're probably working the worst system that exists in the city of Richmond. Because our rules come from the federal government. They come from Washington, D.C., that govern HUD, that governs all housing authorities across the country. And they're not individual friendly. And I think oftentimes what happens is we oftentimes find ourselves in situations trying to balance that. And oftentimes, depending on who's in that office today, how well they may get balanced. Because you have to stretch the rules some, right, to make things work. Because one of the things that oftentimes happens at a housing authority, if violence takes place at a household, there used to be a issue that, okay, everybody must go, right?
Yes.
And so
I
those are the
remember
things
that.
that we've tried to, in terms of develop, in terms of change some policies to exist. And it's not perfect. It's a work in progress. But I think that's the thing that's most challenging is that systems have lots of rules. And when you have an organization that 90% of its funding comes from the federal government, there's even more rules that exist. And so those things are important because one of the things that we do in our department is we advocate for people and we fight for our residents. A lot of times, you know, we don't get the results that we desire, but because we try to, we have to put forth and try to work within those boundaries. So that's what we try to do is to continue to change some of the policies and challenge some of the policies so that we can assist and help people in a better way. But rules are tough. I wasn't a good rule follower in school.
Oh, I was wondering.
Sitting right with you.
I was getting ready to say, I think, can we see a show of hands of how many people probably got in trouble a lot in school, in the room here, when they were in school for not following the rules, not coloring within the blocks, being called, like, we're the outside thinkers, et cetera. Yes, definitely. I love the acknowledgement of one, you know, and I think health systems in general have examined how we interact with our patients, becoming more patient-centered, even changing our terminology from patient to client, and so that it's more empowering. And I appreciate what you say regarding what you shared in reminding about the 90% of the funding and the rules that are associated with that, and most importantly, how the interpretation of those rules. I'm sorry, Carol, did you have something else to say?
I mean, just to take on him, that's so true.
Do you need another mic?
That's so true. And just realize that those of us, rule breakers, who then end up in systems trying to, you know, how do we get here? But we do, you know, like trying to make the system work for us, is that all of you are ahead of the system. Like, we do rely on all of you because you are discovering the things that these communities really need. Voices like Darrell are letting us know it's really needed, and we have to translate that and try to get the government or the rules to follow. And sometimes there's a gap, and sometimes that's why it's such a struggle and why we need all of you so much, right? Because you are the ones bringing the future to us, and we're the ones trying to make it happen for you.
In our previous exercise, we looked at our values, and I remember hearing the importance of listening. And I think that's very applicable to what both Ralph and Carol and Darrell, have said regarding listening. The ability to listen and to reflect. So at this time, does anyone have any questions? We are open to questions. Oh, I see a question in the back. Can I have some assistance with, with a microphone? Thank you, Ms. Lee.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Awesome. My name is Erica Love. I'm the program coordinator for the City of Richmond's Mayor's Youth Academy in the Office of Community Wealth Building. Again, I had to write my question down. We're mostly known for our summer work-based learning program, but we also have a youth advocacy program called Youth Council. And so in our Youth Council, we gather City of Richmond teens, and they are tasked with researching topics that affect youth in the City of Richmond. And the top two things that always come up is mental health and youth violence. So I wanted to ask, in your opinion, what are the common factors that contribute to youth violence? And what can we do as a youth-serving organization to support youth that have been directly impacted by youth violence?
Poverty and social inequities contribute to youth violence. The fact that we have a history of redlining in this community, that we have food deserts in this community, that we have racial discrimination that still happens, that we have an overabundance of people in prison. I mean, all of those things that we talk about all the time, or is it? It's not that youth are out there like, I'm gonna grow up and kill people. It's that we have social structures set in place that hold our community back in such a way that people take paths they would not normally take. And so this is why we have to change this. We have to change it.
I think for us, what we've seen is social media. And we've seen things really get out of hand quickly, or the potential to get out of hand quickly. And then also opportunity. Opportunity for our youth to express themselves, opportunity for our youth to have employment, opportunity for our youth to participate in cultural enrichment activities. How many people know that you're probably, in this room, you're probably less than a mile away from the largest public housing community between Washington, D.C. and Miami? 781 units, over 1,000 high school kids, public school kids. And I guarantee you, half of them, 3/4 of them, doesn't even know, I've never been on this campus. And so I think oftentimes what happens is we can say things that are very, 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 very at a different level. But when you get right down to this exposure, opportunity. We've had the opportunity to take kids from that community across the James River on the south side. Elementary school kids, first, second graders asked us, is that the ocean? The James River. And so I think one of the things that our communities become very isolated, and they are very difficult to find. You have to be very intentional to find your way to Gilpin Court from this campus. Very intentional. Same thing in the East End. And so for us, it's an opportunity. It's cultural enrichment. It's experiences. Because one, we know that you are a complete positive of all your experiences, right? That's Gestaltism in psychology. So the less experiences you have, the less opportunity you have, the more prone you are going to be able to stay and get caught into the systems that exist. And so one of the things that is so important is this focus in giving kids opportunity, giving young folks opportunity. And it changes attitudes, they start believing in acceptance. And so those things are so important in terms of what we try to do, is give students, give youth opportunity, give them employment. Because one of the things that happens in this city, if you ride around this city, and I know you, when you're on campus, you're very isolated. But if you go to every fast food restaurant in this city, you see adults working. You don't see kids. So where does, as she talked about, one of the best programs in the city, the Mayor's Youth Academy, we kind of emulated our program, our youth leadership program in employment, because they didn't have enough slots. Right? Those things are important. And so when you put, in the summertime, when we put money in a student's hand, they listen. We have their full attention. We have their full attention. And we start as young as 8 years old with our programs during the summer for our youth, right? 8 years old. Because we know that at 8 years old in our communities, you can see things that adults have never seen. So you have to be able to engage and provide those opportunities, provide those cultural enrichment programs, because those things are essential. Because one of the things is we can expand their horizon, give them a vision, and provide the supports for themselves. It makes a difference. And we don't have enough money, and we don't have enough people, right? We need more money, more people, more partners to actually attach themselves to our vision, right? Don't come to us with your vision, to our vision, because we have proof in the pudding. Every year we send 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 youth away to college. Every year. Every year. And so, we've had kids graduated from Howard University with medical degrees, law degrees, everything, from public housing. And so we have a track record, a history. We don't go out and beat our chest about it because there's so much more work to be done. But we have a history of some of the brightest kids. We took a group just last summer up to Micron. Right? Micron is probably one of the few chip-making companies on the East Coast. Right? We had a young girl, 5th grader from Fairfield, able to answer many of the questions that they were asking. There were kids from all over the state, kids from all the suburbs and all the big schools. We had a 5th grader from Fairfield. Was the first one to stand up and define what a micron was. Right? And so it's just the power. And so their intelligence is not defined by their zip code, right? It's just opportunity and opportunity and opportunity. I mean, you talk about it, one of the things that I did is you do the Stanford Binet Intelligence Test, right? It has a whole section called the General Fund of Knowledge. And it's your experiences you get outside of your formal education. So when my kids are going to the Science Museum, when my kids are traveling, that exposure beats a lot of what you get in school because you get the geography. It's so many things you get through those experiences. And so opportunity, experiences, mentorship is so important when you start talking about changing folks' lives, especially young people, and that support and that encouragement. And then this is my last thing. One of the things that we've done is the things I did growing up when I was in school, today I would be in jail. Because we have criminalized all this behavior, right? I would be in jail the things I did growing up when I was in school. And it wasn't anything that was malintended, it was just mischievous kids, right? This is what you do. But now, in our schools, we criminalize all the behavior, and we say the kids are awful, we say the kids are bad, and then they're not. They just are being children. And it happens differently in different places, I can tell you that from experiences, right? Working in some schools, I've seen it, I've worked in school systems, and I've been in school systems where things happened that were just criminal, and the police was never called, a simple call to the parents. It happens all the time. So I think one of the things we have to do is we start talking about equity, but opportunity is so important for young folks.
I have one thing to challenge. I'm going to hand it to Jarrell. See, I think there is enough money. I think it's how we distribute the money.
I agree. I just need more of it.
We have the money to fix all these problems. The people with the money are not helping us fix the problems.
I'm not gonna lie. Could you repeat that question again? Just the ending part. You don't have to do the whole thing. Just the ending.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello. So it was a two-part question. So the first part is, what are the common factors that contribute to youth violence, and what can we do as a youth-serving organization to support youth that have been impacted by violence, whether it be indirectly or directly?
For one, I agree with you with that. From being in any projects, and I was telling Carol this on the way here, I was like, I've never been to this place. Never stepped foot in here. I never even seen the outside of the building. Yeah, and I work at VCU, so that should tell you a lot. Well, basically, they have too much time on their hands with no, I want to say, too much time and no opportunities. So it's like they said, it's a lot of smart people that's in poverty that won't get the same opportunity as certain people in better living places. What I'll say, what could help is, I wouldn't say the programs, because they've been trying to do programs for them for a while, since I was little. I don't think that'll help. I think you should, this gonna sound probably wrong, but I think they need to tear all those down and integrate everybody like they say they are trying to. That way, those kids wouldn't get missed because they'll be right there beside the kids that have that opportunity. So that's what I think. But yeah, they have too much time. And boredom leads to many different things, especially with a work in mind. So I think, did I answer your question? Yes, thank you so much. You sure?
I see another hand. You have another question? Yes.
Yes.
Thank
So-
you.
Sorry, good morning. My name is Esther Gitahi. I am proud to come from the country of Kenya. And I am here because I work with refugees in my organization. But I'm here on a personal standpoint because I heard that in the city of Richmond, it's much easier to get a gun than it is for children and youth to get an apple. As an African, as a Kenyan, that is very shocking. I did not know, I literally just was stunned. And my question, probably a solution, is I heard in America that you wait until you're in college to go abroad. And I was thinking, we have so many programs for young children to go and experience other countries, especially when you talk about heritage and culture. The Black voice, they were taken from America, and they don't know who they are. So I think it would be nice, before even going abroad, is to connect with cultural sensitivity groups like Kizomba. I teach Kizomba, I speak several languages, and I would love to help in teaching our children where they come from, what our practices are, our traditions, and then maybe the next step would be actually taking them to a country like Kenya and showing them what community means, because I think that will solve a lot of violence. If you see how someone else lives, you'll come back home more grateful for having 7, 8, 9 types of cereal when someone else doesn't have that. So I don't know if that's a solution. There are a lot of prominent people here, but I am open, honestly, because our children need us. Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And that is what one of the purpose and outcomes of this conference, is to look at the partnerships and connecting.
I would just like to, my name is Shanika McClellan. I work for LISC Virginia. And what we do is we go into economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, and we work towards bringing in resources, programming for individuals, families, small business, affordable housing, and all of that. But the reason why I wanted to make a comment, I wanted to add some context to what you said, Mr. Stokely, and also the young man.
Ralph Stuckley.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But you hit on something. Years ago, I met a young man who lived in Richmond's North Side who was just as handsome as you want to be. But despite that, he came from a single mother, and he got into some trouble because he went and met some friends in an abandoned house that had electricity. And the police actually just watched him, just, let me see where this young man is going. met his friends there, and he was the one that was 18 years of age, and he received a conviction for stealing electricity. And like you said, you know, you probably at doing that in your day today would have gotten you in trouble just for being mischievous, you know? And that young man's family could not afford an attorney. And so they basically felt helpless to whatever the system provided, or, you know, for that young man. So you were mentioning opportunities and access because of the idle time that our youth have. And I do think that's a factor. Again, you know, we all are here trying to come up with solutions to some of these problems, but I really appreciate some of the comments that were made, because our kids, you know, they say idle mind is the devil's workshop. We've all heard that, I would assume. And I don't necessarily have a point, it's just that I wanted to add real context to what you were saying.
Thank you. So we have time for one more question.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Patterson. I'm with the Office of Community Wealth Building's Wealth Building team. So we talked, or I've heard a lot about investment. And there are opportunities throughout the city, not as many and not in abundance as needed for especially 13 to 18-year-olds. But my question is, how do we, as partners and as people in this room, encourage the investment for those in disadvantaged communities to invest in themselves, but also have others see the need to invest in those communities? So maybe it's a two-parter.
That's a great question. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hey, hey, girl. Hey.
I know some of this answer is not going to apply to you, but I think one of the things that oftentimes happens is that people just say, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Well, I don't have any bootstraps. And so one of the things that happens is people always have a misinterpretation. And I'll be honest, you know, where I'm from, you know, I believed in, you know, that's what happens, right? Because you just work hard. But it's very difficult when you are functioning. I'll give you an example. Most people don't realize that, you know, that we deal in our communities, it's extreme poverty, right? How much is your car note? You know, your car note. Quickly. Okay, all right. She has a $700 car note. All right. So she has a big, you know, she's a big baller. She got a nice car, you know.
Yes, she does have a nice car.
So you know, okay. So a $700 car note, a gym membership, cell phone, all those things, right? $1,000. You go to dinner a couple of times a week, a month. $1,200 you throwing out the door. All right. 12 times 12, $14,000 a year. All right. Just play money, right? In my community, the average income is $11,000. How the hell am I going to pull myself out the bootstraps if I'm trying to live off $11,000? I got kids to feed, you know, because my kids, they deserve a pair of sneakers too, right? They deserve something nice when they go to school. And so I think what happens is there's a misinterpretation that people just need to pull themselves up out of bootstraps. Well, they need some bootstraps.
Or some boots.
Or some boots, right? And so I think oftentimes what happens is, and so oftentimes what happens is when you grow up and your day-to-day is scratching and survival, it's hard to make that next mental adjustment. It's hard to make that, and then you grow up in a community where gunshots and violence is the norm. It's hard to make that mental, emotional, social adjustment to helping myself, because I'm in a survival mode all the time. And VCU has a wonderful program called Health Disparities. They talk about the impact of the violence on your physical health, high blood pressure, all the chronic health conditions. So it's a lot of variables that go into me helping myself. Right? You know, my daughter, she totaled her car. Well, she's concerned about when she's getting her next car, right? She's in college, right? So she's like, Dad, when am I gonna get my car? When am I gonna get my car? When am I gonna get my car? It's only been a month, child. It takes a while, you know. You gotta walk a while. You gotta pay the price, right? But she feels punished because she doesn't have her car. Right? Her next car after she's totaled the car. Most of my families don't even have a car. When I have to catch the bus, if you catch the bus from Hillside Court to come down to downtown Richmond, you have to take 2 buses. They just put shelters in Gilpin Court on Chamberlain for the bus stop. And I can tell you, I live in Petersburg, and I've caught the bus from Petersburg to Richmond. Right? And the GRTC has a bus, right? And what happens is, it takes me 25 minutes to get here from Petersburg in my car. It takes me an hour and 10 minutes added on both ends of my day, right, to get to work. So it's a lot of variables than me just helping myself, right? I need a lot of help to help myself. My families don't have someone to call, right, when they need $100. All of those things that we take for granted and we assume, it doesn't happen in our communities. So the supports that's needed, and then just the patience and the love when I get on a job. The patience and love, because I don't know, right? We train folks back and forth night and day and have no job to give them. Right? We train folks back and forth night and day and have no job to give them. Why not train me as I work? Right? And help me. And those are the things that, you know, I've been advocating for. And so it's important. It's more than just pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. There are a lot of variables. There are a lot of variables. And people fail. I mean, I can tell you the number of times I've failed. We've all failed. And I think oftentimes when we start serving folks, because we have quotas to make, we want them to do this and do it quickly. But success is not a straight, it's up, down, all around. And so those things are important when you start talking about serving and who you serve and that kind of thing. So that's very important.
Thank Carol.
The questions like that are so interesting because, you know, in the truth of everything you just brought, I also want people to not think like that if these communities can't pull themselves up by their bootstraps, that they're not helping themselves. They are, and they're helping each other in various ways, watching each other's children so someone can go to an appointment, driving, you know, the cabbing each other around, paying each other's fines or bills, sharing food. Despite the structures that are in place of pay disparity and access issues, these communities do help each other. They help each other survive. And success is that weird American ideal of success is what? You know, we can't define success for someone else. We need to allow the communities to define success for themselves and not put some imposition on them that they're only valuable if they make so much money, or they're only valuable if they contribute in this particular way, or they're only valuable, their yards look like this, you know. Those are barriers, those are additional barriers we put on people, you know, instead of just saying, what is it you need and want? And how can we not only help you, but how do we also just get out of your way as well?
Go ahead, speak from your heart, Darrell.
I don't think I want that. I think I think we talk more about their disadvantages than their advantages. I think we talk more, I don't want to say, I was going to say negative, but, well, I'm going to say negative. We talk more negative about these things, and I don't hear any positive talk. I hear positive talk, but I don't, it's more negative. It's like you're saying something good, but it's also, it's not, it's like you're saying something good but bad at the same time. It's not, you don't talk about the positives and how to build on it, you know? Like you said, the communities help each other, you know? Right, so if you, I don't know how to, it sounded good in my head. No, it really did. I don't know.
Let me say this. I think it's so important because one of the things that happens is that, you know, that's oftentimes how our communities is painted, that there's nothing positive. And, you know, so one of the things that we tell our students when they go off to college, you can accomplish anything. You know, kids from our communities have grit, right? They've overcome their challenges and they're very positive. Families do support each other in very positive ways, and as she talked about. And so there are a lot more until you get into the community and see. They watch out for each other. They love each other. They celebrate birthdays, holidays, everything in the community. But oftentimes it's closed to the outside world because people don't come in and see, and people don't take the time and just listen to the families and talk to the families. They have desires and wants for their kids, but oftentimes as we talk about, partners come in with their own agenda, with what they want to accomplish, what they've written a grant and got funding for, right? Without ever asking the families or the kids, what do you want? And so I think those things are important in terms of recognizing. There are a lot of great partners in our communities that are really well respected and supported by the families. So it's a lot going on in the community, but oftentimes to the outside world, it's just the projects. Those folks and their projects, right? Without having any idea of the people, that they're people.
That was an excellent way to wrap this up and to come to the conclusion of this panel. I want to thank you all for speaking from the heart, from speaking, sharing your stories. And at this time, I want to call Vaughn up and have Vaughn speak at this point. You want to just switch off?
Yes. Thank you. Can we give Dr. Battle and the panelists a round of applause?